I cannot believe that I am still up here talking about Doc Rivers as it pertains to the Philadelphia 76ers, but here we are. In this video, I'm going to break down the comment that got me fired up when we get on the mic and show what a sinking ship that the Milwaukee Bucks are, as well as explain why that opens up an opportunity for this Sixers team and why it was the right decision to bring Joel Embiid back once again. So I'm going to open things off right away with what Doc Rivers said. This coming in the struggles that this team has recently had on the road. They are 18-20 on the road this season, and Doc Rivers was asked exactly why that is. And in typical Doc Rivers fashion, he took 0% of the responsibility himself and managed to throw this blame onto someone that I thought it was entirely impossible. So the exact quote here, when asked about the struggles on the road, Doc says, quote, "I've actually been sitting back and watching everything. Not just our players, but our travel crew, everything. We don't bring the necessary professionalism, seriousness on the road." And then Doc kind of reflected that. He elaborated, saying that this is not just an immediate fix, that this is something for the long term, for the culture of the team, I feel is important. Doc made similar comments back in Philadelphia, talking about the training staff, things like that there has to be a winning attitude throughout all the pillars of the organization, that this is something that he is stuck to. But, dude, the bottom line is go win a basketball game. That was a blown opportunity by the Milwaukee Bucks last night against the Washington Wizards of all teams. That Giannis had a chance to seal it with a couple free throws, was unable to do so. They allowed an uncontested layup on the opposite end after a missed free throw, which just cannot happen. And these are all basketball fixes. These are not things that have to do with how your travel people say what's up to your players. These are not things that impact winning, and it is wild to say so. And I still do find it funny that Doc Rivers was portrayed as this knight in shining armor, this guy ready to take this team to the championship promised land. And just to point out the difference in results since this time, that the Bucks with Adrian Griffin were 30-13, and now they are 15-14 under Doc Rivers. Now the defensive metrics have gotten better, and I know that was the main reason that Doc Rivers was brought in. But there's been a ton more collapses. There's been a severely less play time for the young players. It's all the Doc Rivers tendencies being put on full display. That poor Milwaukee Bucks fans are getting the Doc Rivers treatment in such a short dose. It almost feels like watching the Nets fans go through the Ben Simmons cycle at a far more rapid rate than Sixers fans got it. That at least for Philadelphia, we were able to watch this play out over several years. It's the exact same thing with Doc Rivers, that you're seeing the shortcomings, you're seeing the frustrations, and the things that you just straight up can't change his mind on. And why I think this is important as it pertains to the Philadelphia 76ers is the door is open in the Eastern Conference. And it feels like for so often that things are talked about as if so many teams are head and shoulders above the Sixers, when I straight up just don't think that is the case. And to point to the standings specifically, again, the Sixers have their own internal issues to work through, but looking at where the Bucks sit right now, they're the second best team in the East. And of course, the Celtics are a little bit on their own pedestal there, but they're a team that have had playoff shortcomings as well. The Milwaukee Bucks, absolutely leaking oil. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the Sixers have beat twice without Joel Embiid this season. Looking below that, the Magic are a young team that I don't like the way that roster is constructed. There's not enough shooting, and they're just a young team overall. The New York Knicks are banged up and played their best basketball months ago. The Indiana Pacers have cooled off significantly since the start of the season. The Miami Heat are a dangerous team, but they are a team that the Sixers may only have to face once in the play-in and then see where things go from there. They are a team that scares me far more than a couple of the teams above them. And then there are the Sixers sitting in the 8th seed. We know the internal issues that the Sixers have to fix. So they have to get things up to speed, get Joel Embiid on the same page as this team, but I don't want it to get lost with how good this Sixers team has been with Joel Embiid on the roster. And to point that out specifically, that on the season, the Sixers are 27-8 with Joel Embiid. That comes with a 14-27 record without it, but there is a reason for that. This guy is the most valuable player in the NBA, quite literally the MVP. And one of the things that I think is interesting, that yes, it's been a tough stretch to watch, and I've made this comparison over on Fox Sports The Gambler, so sorry for repeating myself if you have seen this, but it feels like when you're at that Thanksgiving dinner that you can have all the mac and cheese you want, the mashed potatoes, the yams, whatever sides are appealing to you. But if you don't have that main dish, that turkey, the meal does not come together. And that's been the case with the Sixers, that they have not had that main course, the guy that sets the tone, the thing that everything is built around in Joel Embiid. The guys like Buddy Hield, like Kyle Lowry, like Kelly Oubre, these are pieces that make significantly more sense when you're playing next to the player, the caliber and the style of Joel Embiid. And just to point out specifically the impact that he does make, once again, shout out to Sixers Galaxy for this type of breakdown here. With Joel Embiid this season, 27-8 on the year, 121 points per game, which is second in the NBA, 122.7 offensive rating, also second in the NBA. They a 112.6 defensive rating, which is tied for 6th. They shoot 48.5% from the field, which is tied for 10th. 38.1% on three-point percentage, which is tied for 5th. That 27-8 record with Embiid would have had Philly on pace to win 63 games this season. That is a dangerous team. That is a real deal high-level team that is producing. And to compare it to the games without him, it is drastic. To look at those numbers, 14 and 27 without Joel. That the 108.6 points per game that they average is the worst in the NBA. The 113.7 offensive rating is tied for 25th. The 118.4 defensive rating, 27th in the NBA. Shooting the worst field goal percentage in the entire league at 44.7% and just 34.8% from beyond the three-point arc, which is tied for the worst there. That is a night and day difference. And again, there's a reason for this. That this guy was crowned the most valuable player in the NBA for a reason. Now, it is frustrating that you kind of see these night and day differences, and you can point to the Sixers as a critique for them not being able to overcome it. But this is kind of the give and take with players, that this is not a Boston Celtics situation, that when you take Jason Tatum out of there for a day, that Jaylen Brown can step up and be that alpha. And you do have Drew Holiday, and you do have Derek White, and Kristaps Porzingis, and these other guys that can step up. These Sixers are so centered around Joel Embiid, and he has earned that right. This is a guy who has outlived 3 coaches, 4 general managers, hundreds of players that have cycled through. Joel Embiid has been the stabilizing force of this Sixers team, and he is back in full force and ready to contend on a team that I would argue is the most well-built around his skill set that we've seen in the Joel Embiid era. That, yes, you can point to the top-end talent of teams like Jimmy Butler, on rosters with players like Jimmy Butler on it, or even in the Ben Simmons era, the Al Horford era. You can argue that top-end talent, but as far as guys that are tailor-made to play next to Joel Embiid, it's this Sixers roster. And you know what? Joel Embiid's a believer as well, because you know what he said just following that game? It was this quote right here saying that the Sixers' success in the players is incumbent on Embiid's health, but Sixers will manage his minutes in the remaining 7 regular season games. Embiid told TNT that his injury, quote, took a toll mentally. Quote, I just want to come back. I think we got a chance even at the level I'm at, and I'm only going to get better. And that is the facts there, that he's only going to improve off the baseline that we saw yesterday. That there's no doubt his fitness is not quite there yet, that he is not up to the level. There were some rusts, 6 turnovers. There were some poor decisions down the stretch, not quite up to game speed, but that happens when you're away from the sport for a full 2 months. But give him a little ramp-up period, keep the roster as is currently constructed, figure out a way to get this team to gel, and this team has a fighting chance. That I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, and the Sixers have to take care of their own business before we're saying that. But if we want to look at these standings here, let's say the season ended today. Let's say if they're able to climb to the 6th seed, which again, I give a far better chance than people are giving credit. And again, I will highlight the matchup with the Miami Heat tomorrow, which will be massive in terms of the standings. But say they get to that 6th seed. That's a first-round matchup with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who strike zero fear into my heart. Then it's a matchup with the Milwaukee Bucks, 2nd round, assuming they take care of business over whoever comes out of the playing game. We're talking about that's 2, I'm not going to say easy because it's the NBA and all these teams are difficult, but 2 winnable matchups for this Sixers team that when they're playing their best are better than these rosters. So it's time to get hyped about this team again. The Doc Rivers sinking the Bucks ship in front of us essentially paved the way for a clear playoff path. The Sixers have to focus on their own issues, put their feet in front of them, and take care of their own business. But the future is looking bright for this Sixers team, and I cannot wait to see how things go down. So let me know how you guys feel in the comments. Are you as on the bandwagon as I am? Do you still have the same hatred in your heart for Doc Rivers that does ring a little bit for me when I see quotes like this? I cannot believe that it's going down, but it feels a whole lot better seeing it in another jersey. So appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're smashing that like button, hitting subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time right here on Sixers Digest.